This is KOOP HD1 HD3 Hornsby, radio for people, not for profit. Welcome to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Each week, we explore how your library is more than books. The library is knowledge, technology, and inspiration for our community. Hey there, co-op listeners. This is Kanya Lyons. I'll be your host today. And in recognition of LGBTQ Pride Month, we're going to discuss the Austin History Center's LGBTQ plus resource guide. And you'll learn all about what that actually is here in just a little bit. But just a little introductory bit about it. The collections at the Austin History Center contain valuable materials about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and queer and questioning people, and LGBTQ issues. And the LGBTQ plus resource guide makes it easier to identify and locate these resources. And it was compiled by scholar and former AHC, that's the Austin History Center, volunteer Scott Hoffman and video archivist Tim Hamblin. And they're both here in the studio with us today. So I want to give a welcome to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's learn a little bit about each of you, and then we'll kind of dive into today's topic and actually talk about the resource guide. So let's start with you, Tim. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up being an archivist, a video archivist at the History Center?
Well, I first found out about Austin when I was living in the West Indies and had a friend there. I came to visit and, like everyone else, stayed and was I stayed because of the music and was much involved in that and worked in record stores, worked with bands, and eventually lobbied for the Austin Music Network, which lasted for 10 years. And after a while, I was made archivist for the Music Network, and then when that closed down, I was adopted by the History Center, and I went with the collection to the Austin History Center, and now I'm the video archivist for the city.
Excellent. Excellent. And so, and you, Scott, how is it that you came to be a volunteer at the Austin History Center?
Well, I'm an Austin native. My family's lived here coming up on about 170 years now.
Wow.
And I went away and got a doctorate in American Studies from Purdue University, boiler up, and came back to live here in Austin, working at the local PBS station, KLRU. And I just was looking for something to do to give back to the community. And a friend put me in touch with Tim. And we weren't even talking about this project at the time. It just kind of came up. And I was like, oh, I'd like to work on that. And that's how I got involved.
Fantastic. Well, so can you tell me kind of a little bit about this guide, how it came to be, and maybe even like how many years it took you to compile?
Well, how it came about to be was Kate Messer from the Austin Chronicle a few years back had come into the History Center to do some research on the LGBTQ community and found the staff extremely helpful, but we didn't have a lot of materials there. So she wrote an article in her column, The Gay Place, saying, it's a great place, but it's lacking in the coverage of this area of our community. So at the next staff meeting, everyone said, well, this is terrible. We need to do something about this. So I volunteered to spearhead the charge to try and get more materials. And so and the first thing to do is to do a resource guide to see exactly what we do have, which, is not that great, but we're expanding all the time because people donate stuff. And that's where Scott came in, and he can tell you how much work he did all the work, and I just take some of the credit for it.
I think I spent at least a couple of years working on it. I would come in just about every Sunday and spend the afternoon there, and I just combed through everything I could get my hands on. Having a background in American history, I had an idea, and having done research before, I had an idea of what to look for and where to look for. And then the staff, of course, part of the issue was that the staff, everybody individually knew about this, that, and the other, but they had never really collectively brought it together. So I had lots of great leads and suggestions from the staff to work on as well.
Fantastic.
And I just wanted to point out we did have one great volunteer, Danny Camacho, who sadly is gone, but he was a longtime volunteer. And when he was going through researching a lot of things in the old newspapers, he would pull out articles relating to this topic. So he was immensely important in helping us expand that, and sadly missed.
Oh, yeah, he was a regular over there at the History Center. I saw him so many times.
Yeah, he sure was.
He was great. So if you're just joining us, listeners, this is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on KOOP 91.7 FM and streaming at coop.org. We have show details about this show at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. Today we're talking to video archivist Tim Hamblin and Dr. Scott Hoffman, scholar and educator, and they compiled the Austin History Center LGBTQ plus resource guide, and I'm eager to learn more about this. So can you give me a little teaser, highlight some of the more robust collections that you have included in this guide?
Well, we do have a lot of paper collections from various people in the community. For example, we have the collections of Gail MacDonald, and these span from about 1977 to 1992 and document the lesbian and gay rights movement during that period, and that includes correspondence and clippings and even financial records. And she was co-chair of the Austin Lesbian Gay Political Caucus from 91 to 93. So we have papers like that, but we also have novels written by either about LGBTQ subjects or by LGBTQ authors. Lots of music. Tim can tell you about a lot of that. Lots of music from LGBTQ groups, Two Nice Girls and beyond, and things like that. Some video. We have some video. There's a report from June '77 from KView about LGBTQ rights, which is probably something to do in conjunction with the anniversary of Stonewall in June, things like that.
Excellent. So, yeah, you mentioned all the different types of materials in the collection. I wanted to know a little bit about, so when you mentioned kind of the 70s, when did people in Austin first start to organize and to demand LGBTQ plus equality?
That was about within a year of the Stonewall Uprising in Greenwich Village in New York. That was in June of 1969. By that time in 1970, a group calling itself the Gay Liberation Front, modeling itself after a larger national movement that also had developed, a national organization. I don't know if they were a chapter or what their relationship was on the UT campus. Excellent. And began agitating and working towards equality and acceptance on the UT campus.
Yeah, we have a really interesting oral history from a person called Dennis Paddy, and he actually goes through the whole history of how the gay liberation movement started in Austin and at UT, and how it actually grew out of the anti-war movement during the Vietnam era. So that is absolutely fascinating, and he talks about that era and the clubs in town that were very secretive and well worth checking out. It's available on our YouTube channel.
Oh, I'll have to look for that. The History Center's YouTube channel.
Yes.
Cool.
And it was not unusual across the country for the movement to grow out of the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. Mm-hmm. Now, they were basically suppressed by the university administration at the time and went to court and eventually won. But in the meantime, they had a very famous fundraising dance in the UT ballroom.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, it was broken up by the cops because it was 1970. 71. And supposedly, I think I'm right on this, the picnic they had to celebrate their court victory and the arrival of Everyone called it GLF, Gay Liberation Front, was actually the first Pride event
Oh, wow.
in Austin, the precursor to all the festivals and parades and all that we have now.
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting piece of history. I want to keep going, but we're going to take a short break and listen to an audio clip and hear some announcements, and then we're going to finish this conversation right after that break. So next up, the audio clip is Tomás Q. Morin reading his poem titled Saudade as part of the Oral Literature Monthly series, which features the Chacon Street poets. Thomas is an awarded poet and a senior lecturer in English at the Texas State University San Marcos. And then after that, we'll hear about some library programs happening around the city.
Tomás Q. Morin is the author of the poetry collections Patient Zero and A Larger Country. He co-edited with Marie L'Esperance Coming Close 40 essays on Philip Levine. He translated Pablo Neruda's The Heights of Machu Picchu and the opera Pancha Villa from a Safe Distance. He currently teaches at Texas State University and in the low residency MFA program of Vermont College of Fine Arts. So here's, without further ado, Tomás.
So the title of the poem is a Portuguese word, saudades. A lot of my poems start with my trying to find like an answer to some sort of silly question. I had seen the word before. It was the word was on this list of most untranslatable words. So I was like, well, like I want to know what that is. And it's some sort of like mixture between like nostalgia, but melancholy. And I wanted to be able to pronounce it correctly, so I went to a website where you can just plug in a word from any language, and then you'll hear someone pronouncing it in that language. And there are two different pronunciations for the word. It's spelled Saudades, and one of them is saudades, and then the other is saudades. And I liked saudades more, and I probably listened to it at least like 30 times. And I kept like slowing it down. Like I would pause after the first syllable. And there came a point where I started hearing like English in it. That first part, I started thinking of pigs, sow, and then dodges, actually trying to, dodge someone. And then I was like, oh, like I think a poem is forming. So that was where this came from. Saudades. When that word, one part swine, one part evasion, first wobbled into my life, I was eating pastrami and hiding in my office from students. And I knew Andrade was in the air, as was the samba, and how it's almost impossible to translate either one, nor should you, unless you've been a disciple of the rough grief that lovingly wraps you in its wings, which is warmer than one would expect, so much so that it's easy to forget for a moment something trivial like pigs aren't supposed to fly, or that if you say saudades with enough pain and heart, the pigs of your past will come trotting out of the dark, doing their little sideways dance around you, shaking their hips to the drum in your chest until you forget what a frown is or why we need them. And oh, they will remind you how delicious Carnival is, and how glorious it is to make the past present, and how easily one can sleep dressed in feathers.
My name is Blair Parsons, and I'm a librarian at the Central Library. Each week I highlight a selection of programs for adults that are happening around the Austin Public Library, and our full list of programs may be found on the library's events calendar. Friday night, June 29th, the Old Quarry Branch Library is hosting an after-hours, adults-only Harry Potter birthday bash. Harry turns 21 this year, so we will toast his birthday with butterbeer mocktails, play Quidditch Pong, enjoy a trivia scavenger hunt, Hogwarts House-themed crafts, a themed photo booth, and more. Costumes are welcome, and this birthday party is 18 and up only. The party is from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, Friday night, June 29th at the Old Quarry Branch Library. Tuesday night, July 3rd, is the next meeting of the Central Library's Board with Books board game program. A wide range of modern and traditional board games are available to play, and attendees are welcome to bring their own to play. Board with Books meets the first Tuesday night of the month from 6 o'clock to 8:45 at the Central Library. And the next meeting is Tuesday, July 3rd.
Hey there, Austin. This is Claire here to tell you all about this week's events at the Austin Public Libraries. Ever wanted to know how to follow your passion and run your own business? The Austin Public Library is giving teens the tools they need to get started with the Like a Boss series. This week, learn to write like a boss. Teens will learn how to turn their personal histories into stories in this nonfiction writing workshop presented by Badger Dog Creative Writing. All supplies will be provided. Teens can write like a boss on Saturday, June 30th at 2 p.m. at the Ruiz branch. This program is open to teens ages 13 to 18. More details on Write Like a Boss and additional summer reading programs can be found at library.austintexas.gov/events.
This is Alana Graves, the youth librarian at the Carver branch. The summer is almost halfway done, but the Austin Public Library is still offering summer reading events for kids. This week, there is a special Tech Chicos program series at the Ruiz branch. Kids ages 9 to 14 can explore storytelling through a variety of technology and design activities such as virtual reality, video game and app design, wearable technology with 3D printing, and other group activities. This program series takes place during the week of Monday, June 25th to Friday, June 29th between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. at the Ruiz branch. Details at library.austintexas.gov.
You're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. Radio for people, not for profit.
Support comes from East Side Pies, local pizza with local ingredients. 3 locations around Austin: East Side off Rosewood, Airport and 53rd, and Anderson Lane. Take out or eat in. Online ordering now available at eastsidepies.com.
Hello, and welcome back. Right before the announcements, we had Tomás Q. Morin read his poem Saudade as part of the Oral Literature Monthly Series, which features the Chicon Street Poets. And then we heard a little bit about some programs that are happening around the library system. So now we're going to get right back into our conversation with video archivist Tim Hamblin of the Austin History Center and scholar Dr. Scott Hoffman. We're talking about the LGBTQ plus resource guide that they both compiled at the Austin History Center. So as everyone surely knows, it is Pride Month. This is June. Hello. Hey. And that's the reason for, one of the many reasons for this discussion. So first, before we jump back into the guide itself and some of the history, I'm curious, Tim, what steps is the city of Austin taking to advocate for equality in employment and fair access?
Well, one of the things was the creation of the Stonewall Equality Employees Network, known as SEEN, and that was started about a year ago, so it's up to its year anniversary.
Right.
And that advocates for equality in employment opportunities and to ensure city services, benefits, and resources are accessible to all LGBTQ employees and retirees. So this is a great opportunity for people to get together and for allies as well. It's very important that people realize that the LGBT community is assisted with allies and is supported, and it gives education on both sides. So we're really happy that that's happening, and it's expanding, and they're having events, and it's a really good thing for the city, and I think we all should be proud of it.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. One of the things that I was so excited about when I started working for the city of Austin a decade ago was this is the first employer I've ever had where, benefits are extended to same-sex spouses. And I think that's really important for the city of Austin to kind of set that example within the community. And it makes me very proud.
Definitely.
So I was curious. We kind of cut you off right as we were starting to get into the meat of things. So Scott, can you tell me a little bit more about what else is in this LGBTQ plus collection at the Austin History Center?
There's a lot of interesting things in the collection, including information about a wonderfully interesting and I believe we'll find to be an important person out of Round Rock, named Vanderclyde Broadway. And I don't know if Broadway was his actual last name.
Sounds
But
fishy.
Vanderclyde was born in Round Rock in 1898, which is the same year my great-grandmother was born, which is how I remember. And performed as a high wire artist with a sister act. It was 3 sisters, and he would perform with them. Then, unfortunately, one of the sisters died in an accident. And so they wanted the show to go on, so he just started dressing as the 3rd sister and became a well-known wire act, and as they would say at the time, female impersonator, drag artist today. And he performed as Barbette in places like New York and Paris, where he was wildly popular. And Barbette was known for ripping her wig off at the end of each performance. That was her trademark. Vanderclyde was friends with Man Ray, the American surrealist photographer, and also had an affair with the French poet Jean Cocteau.
That's impressive.
It's quite a resume. He retired after working with Disney touring shows in Australia in 1972 and came home to Round Rock. He died a year later in 1973 and is buried his ashes are interred at the Round Rock Cemetery. And his headstone just says Barbette.
Lovely. Yeah, that's really impressive for somebody to be doing drag in the 20s and 30s.
Amazing life. It's an amazing life, and then working for Disney in Australia.
Of all things.
Yeah.
What else do we have of particular interest in this collection?
Well, I think people drive past a landmark in our history on the drag all the time and don't realize it, and that is where the Scientology building is now, is where the University Y once stood. And the University Y was, I think Austin was a little unusual in having a YMCA and a YWCA for the city, and then a sort of combined Y for the university. If
you mean like a mixed, like a both sexes Y?
They work together on
okay.
campus. Okay, so if anyone has more details about that, that would be great to know. But again, in the 70s, the Y was noted for its outreach to lesbian and gay people at that time, and it would have it had a library that of about topics related to gay and lesbian life and experience, and they also had what they called weekly rap sessions, where
not hip hop.
No. Although, gosh, wouldn't that have been cool?
That would have been really before its time.
Really before its time. Well, Austin. And so people would come in once a week, and they would talk about their experiences and share their experiences, and
nice.
And so forth. So I actually work on the drag, and it's so interesting to walk. When I go get my lunch, walk past there, and I go, I know what happened there. I know exactly what happened there.
I have documents.
I have documentation. Yeah. So there's that, and I'm trying to think of, is there anything?
I think there may have been one other thing we were going to highlight.
Yeah.
Sad. Well, we've done that as well. Next.
Well, we do have, the collection does include a list of gay bars as reported by the Daily Texan in October of 1976. And these included the Pearl Street Warehouse, which was at 1720 Lavaca. And some of the boomer folks in here are all nodding their heads. And Austin Country, which was at 600 East 7th, the new apartment, as opposed, I guess, to the old apartment, which was at 2828 Rio Grande, and the private cellar, which was on West 6th Street around the 1200 block.
Oh, wow.
So they were, I don't think Austin really has ever had a gayborhood,
right,
per se, like, say, Boys Town in Chicago, or Greenwich Village, places like that in New York. But there has always been opportunities for, Austin has always had opportunities for socializing and bar life, and that pretty much continues today. So.
That's so interesting. Well, I would love to talk all day about this, but I am curious of sort of like what efforts are being taken to document this community as we move forward in time to make sure that we don't lose the history, and where are some of the gaps in our existing documentation at the History Center?
I'm making an effort with outreach to try and let people know that the only way our collections expand is through donations. So when people come in with stuff, materials, and we're lacking in a whole bunch of materials. We also take archive materials. If one person who has been in the community and has a lot of records, then we will willingly accept those and go through them and help them organize them.
So you're talking about donating photos or papers, documents,
videos,
ephemera,
documents, magazines. We have
video, music.
Yeah, we have a selection of periodicals that when you look through the resource guide, you can see all the various topics, the stuff we have, and that we are, sat at the very end as the stuff we are lacking. So it's compared to the community, it's not expansive, but we're hoping to make it better. And one of the things that we're really excited about is we got the Lisa Davis, photo collection, and she was a wonderful photographer here in town, and she works for AP, so she shot the first 100 days of Ann Richards. She did a lot of sports stuff, but she also covered the lesbian music community, which was basically centered, one of the highlights was Two Nice Girls, which Gretchen Phillips is still a major force in the community.
Yes.
So that exhibit is on now, and it runs through July 22nd. And we had a wonderful opening where Gretchen Phillips actually played acoustic and provided some great oral history on the scene. And again, that was something that was recorded, and it's on the History Center YouTube channel if people want to see that. Coming up, related to that, is a panel discussion about the lesbian rock scene of the 1990s, and that's coming up on Saturday, July 7th, so it's open to the public. That should be a real interesting talk, and Kate Messer is going to be on the panel there, and Jana Bertram, and the moderator will be Kieran Nolt. So that should be a real interesting thing to attend.
Fantastic. And so details about that and details about the LGBTQ plus guide, all of that is available at austinhistorycenter.org. So if people are wanting to know more details, that's where to find them. Thanks to Tim Hamblin and Dr. Scott Hoffman for taking time to come to the studio. It was really great to talk to both of you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks to our volunteer, Federico Pacheco, and stay tuned to Rock and Roll Pest Control. Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Special thanks to our producer, DJ Harris, and to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song, Andrew Noble on violin, Kirk Duvall on guitar, and Mike Wheat on percussion. And thanks to you, our listeners. Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesday afternoons at 2:30 on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. If you catch us mid-show, full episodes and other details can be found at library.austintexas.gov/volumes.